Thank you for being here today. I'm Ms. Ong Ai Ping from OUM Ipoh Perak, ID number 681223085926, Bachelor of Early Childhood Education. To have an individual speech presentation on OUMH1303, English for Oral Communication, September 2020 semester. I'm here today to share with you some interesting information about Chinese culture, such as traditional Chinese clothing in China. Now, I'm going to talk about traditional Chinese clothing. The story of clothing and costume is one of the most fascinating developments in human history. Every nation in the world has its unique traditional clothing, from which the particular histories and cultures could be recognized, so as for people to be able to distinguish one citizen from another. China, as a multi-ethnic and time-honored country, has many ethnic minorities who have their indigenous culture. The mutual influences among these different cultures have contributed to the rich textiles, fabrics of history, and have made Chinese clothing with great variation and glory. Traditional Chinese clothing has been shaped and developed alongside the interactive influences between the outside world and China's dynastic traditions. Every different dynastic has different scopes of the region, social values and social norms. Therefore, many aesthetic standards were made according to the environments such as socially, geographically, economically, politically of certain dynasty. This is the main reason why traditional Chinese clothing has such many styles. Types of traditional Chinese clothing. To explore the world of traditional Chinese clothing, it is necessary to learn the most classic 5 categories, which are respectively Hanfu, Cheongsam, Tang suit, Zhongshan suit, and custom of the minority ethnics. Every category has its production techniques, and considerable diversity could be observed when comparing different categories or one category at different times. A brief introduction to each category following contains the basic frameworks of traditional Chinese clothing has been structured. The first one, Hanfu. Hanfu, with the name oriented from the Chinese meaning Han, people's clothing, embody all types and styles of traditional clothing worn by the Han Chinese. The Han Chinese trace a common ancestry to the Huaxia, a name for the initial confederation of agricultural tribes living along the Yellow River. The term Huaxia represents the collective Neolithic confederation of agricultural tribes Hua and Xia, who settled along the central plains around the middle and lower reaches of the Yellow River in northern China. Hanfu and its definitions. Born at the beginning of the history of Han ethnicity. Therefore, it has the longest history among all traditional Chinese clothing. Next, I will speak about the history of Hanfu. Hanfu has a history of more than 3 millennia. From the beginning of its history, Hanfu was inseparable from silk, supposedly discovered by the Yellow Emperor's consort Lezi. Hanfu dominated the Chinese fashion world from the reign of the Yellow Emperor to the end of the Ming Dynasty. Each dynasty has its styles and aesthetics. For instance, Shen Yi in Pre-Qing Dynasty, Ru dress in Qin and Han Dynasty, Tuowan Jian Zhequn in Wei Dynasty, Ban Bei in Sui and Tang Dynasty, and so on. Some clothing are popular and worn by people in different dynasties. Some are just flash in pan. In both cases, all Hanfu has evolved and influenced by each other to some extent. Even though there are plenty of Hanfu styles, each of them could be assembled by a set of clothing pieces such as Yi, an open cross collar garment and worn by both sexes. Pao, any closed full body garment, worn only by men in Hanfu. Ru, open cross collar shirt. Shan, open cross collar shirt or jacket that is worn. Qin or Shang, skirt of women and men. Ku, trousers or pants. Apart from this, ancient Han Chinese were also accessorized with tassel and jade pendants, or various ornaments hung from the belt or sash, known as pei. Follows are some Hanfu styles. Zhongyi, inner garments, mostly white cotton or silk. Sanchin, a short coat with a long skirt. Nuchin, a top garment with a separate lower garment or skirt. Kuche, a short coat with trousers. Zhidao, Zhishen, a Ming Dynasty style robe similar to a xingyi but with wax at the side and stitched leaves. Tao Pao, Fosa, Buddhism priest full dress ceremonial robes. Xuan Tuan, a formal dark robes equivalent to the Western white tie. Shenyi, a long full body garment. Qiji, diagonal body wrapping. Ziji, straight lapels. Yuanling San, Lan San, or Tailing Pao, closed round collar robe, mostly used for official or academical attire. Next, Cheongsam. Cheongsam, also known as Qipao in Mandarin. It is a traditional dress that has its origin back in 17th century. It is a type of mini body hugging dress with peculiar Chinese features of Manchu origin. During the 1920s to 1930s, it was called Mandarin gown and popularized by upper class women in Shanghai. Cheongsam history. In the Qing dynasty, China was ruled by Manchus rather than Han Chinese. The rulers used an administrative division called the Eight-Banner System. Originally, only the Manchu households were organized within this system, but over them, Mongols and Han Chinese were incorporated. The Manchus and anyone living under the Eight-Banner System wore different clothing from ordinary civilians. Such clothing consisted of similar long robes for both men and women and was known as Changpao. For some time, under the dynasty laws after 1636, all Han Chinese were forced under penalty of death to adopt the Manchu male hairstyle, the queue and the dress in Manchu, Changpao, instead of traditional Han Chinese clothing. However, in the 19th century, it was very common for females wearing cheongsam in both formal and casual occasions voluntarily. Nowadays, cheongsam is recognized around the world and has inspired many foreign adaptations because of its simple and yet exotic lines. It is popular because it fits the Chinese female figure well, simple lines, and looks gorgeous. Cheongsam is suitable for wearing all year round for both young and elderly groups. Modern females do not wear cheongsam as everyday attire. Cheongsam are now worn only during formal occasions like weddings, parties, and beauty pageants. Cheongsam is also used as a uniform at some Chinese restaurants, hotels, and airlines. Besides, brides in southern China wear cheongsam as a modified two-piece style, which is adorned with a gold dragon and a phoenix pattern. Dragon and phoenix is a traditional wedding dress favored by Chinese brides nowadays. Third, tang suit. The tang suit has been translated as tang zhuang, often refers to the type of modern Chinese jacket rather than the clothing of the Tang dynasty. Origin of name. Although the tang suit is not clothing in the Tang dynasty, it has something to do with it. The Tang dynasty is one of the most prosperous times in Chinese history. As a result, people use the word Tang to refer to traditional Chinese culture. For example, Chinatowns in the US or the UK, they are called Tang People Street. Tang suit, as the name of Tang People Street, represents certain clothing of deep traditional Chinese cultures. Tang suit history. The history of the Tang suit could be traced back to the early 1900s. It means at the end of the Qing dynasty. Tang suit history. The history of the Tang suit could be traced back to the early 1900s. It means at the end of the Qing dynasty. It is a product of combinations between Manchu jacket elements and the Western jacket elements. A new uniform system had been released by the Chinese government in 1929. With this new system, the Tang suit had become one of the national formal attire for males. in recent years. With a variety of styles and production techniques, the tang suit is getting more and more popular not only in China but globally. Tang suit has appeared in many international events such as on the Asia Pacific Economic Corporation (APEC) in 2001. All national leaders wore tang suit in royal blue scarlet and embroidered with a round pattern, a peonies, China's national flower. Then the tang suit could be seen in 2008 Olympic Games and some of the meeting of the World Trade Organization. Besides, tang suit elements were being utilized many times in famous kung fu films and dramas. To show gratitude and much appreciation towards the designers and the culture industry for their effort to promote tang suit globally, without their enthusiasm and hard work, love and passion of culture, whereby the society don't get a chance to know more about the beauty of arts in traditional clothing on all. 4. Chungsan suit. The modern Chinese tunic suit is a style of male attire originally known in China as Chungsan suit after Sun Yat-sen, and later as the Mao suit after Mao Zedong. Sun Yat-sen introduced the style shortly after the founding of the Republic of China as a form of national dress, although with patently political and later governmental implications. He based the suit on the Japanese cadet uniform. The suit was also known to have cultural implication in which the 4 pockets represented the 4 virtues of the Chinese culture, such as propriety, justice, honesty, and shame. And the 5 buttons represented China's 5 branches of government. History of the Chungsan suit. When the Republic was founded in 1912, the style of the dress worn in China was based on Manchu dress such as Qipao and Changsan, which had been imposed by the Qing dynasty as a form of social control. The majority of Han Chinese revolutionaries who overthrew the Qing were fueled by the failure of the Qing to defend China and the lack of scientific advancement compared to the West. Even before the founding of the Republic, older forms of Chinese dress were becoming unpopular among the elite and led to development of Chinese dress, which combined the Changsha and the Western hat to form a new dress. The Chungsan suit is a similar development that combined Western and Eastern fashions. The Mao suit remained the standard formal dress for the first and second generations of People's Republic of China. Leaders such as Deng Xiaoping. During the 1990s, it began to be worn with decreasing frequency by leaders of General Secretary Jiang Zemin's generation as more and more Chinese politicians began wearing traditional Western style suit with neckties. Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao only wore the Mao suit on special occasions, such as important dinners or the ceremony marking the 60th anniversary of People's Republics in 2009. Hu Jintao even showed up to a black tie state dinner in the United States wearing a business suit, attracting some criticism for being underdressed at a formal occasion. In the Xi Jinping administration, however, the Mao suit makes a comeback as a diplomatic uniform and evening attire. Ethnic minorities. Some countries such as Japan, Korea, France, and Greece are mono-ethnic countries. China is not one of them, which has multi-ethnicities living in down the ages. Ethnic minorities in China are the non-Han Chinese population in China. China officially recognizes 55 ethnic minority groups within China in addition to the Han majority. The degree of variation between ethnic groups is not consistent. Many ethnic groups are described as having unique characteristics from other minority groups and the dominant Han. But some are very similar to the Han majority group. Most Hui Chinese are indistinguishable from Han Chinese except for the fact that they practice Islam. And most Manchu are considered to be largely assimilated into dominant Han society. The 55 ethnic minorities are Mongolian, Hui, Tibetan, Uyghur, Miao, Yi, Chuang, Dai, and so on. As to the clothing of the ethnic minorities, great variation could be observed due to the geographical, cultural, and historical factors. Features of clothing. Common features of ethnic minority clothing are flowery and colorful, extremely exquisite and highly distinctive. Every aspect of their garments, such as raw materials, textile, technology, fashion and decoration, retains a distinct characteristic of the ethnic group and the locality. The Henjin, ethnic minority people who mainly make a living on fishing, used to make clothes with fish skin. The hunting ethnic groups, such as Oregon and Ewenki, use raw skin and animal tendon to stitch up their clothes. The Mongolian, Tibetans, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uyghur, etc., who are mainly engaged in stock breeding, make their apparel mostly from animal skin and hair. And farming ethnic minorities usually take the locally produced cotton or hemp thread as raw materials to spin cloth and silk and make clothes. Ethnic minorities spinning and weaving, tanning and fletting techniques boast a long history. For example, Bombak's clothes of the Li ethnic minority, the woolen fabric of the Tibetan, Adeli silk of the Uyghur, fur products of the Oregon have enjoyed a worldwide reputation all along. There are numerous clothing design and form in Chinese ethnic minorities. Generally speaking, they can be classified into two types: long gowns and short clothes. People usually wear a hat and a boot to match long gowns, and hat clothes and shoes to match short clothes. The gown take various forms: high collar and big front type worn by the Mongolian, the Manchu, the Tu, and so on. The collarless titted front type worn by the Tibetan, the Moinba, and so on, the titted front type worn by the Uyghur and other ethnic minorities, and so on. As for short clothes, they fall into two types: trousers and skirts. Costume of ethnic minorities vary greatly, not only with different nationalities, but also with different branches and different regions within the same ethnic group. The difference can be seen from province to province, from county to county, or even from village to village. The costume is the most obvious symbol of an ethnic group, and in history, many ethnic groups were named just according to their garments. The 7 key variations in traditional Chinese clothing. The 5 broad categories of traditional Chinese clothing have been introduced. In general, each of them could be recognized by 7 key variations. The first key, design. Traditional Chinese clothes usually adopted a straight cut and well loose in shape. Besides, the overall harmony of the outfit was also emphasized. Second, the embroidery, a folk art tradition, occupies an important position in the history of Chinese arts and craft. It has long development inseparable from silkworm raising, silk reeling and weaving. The production of the silk threads and fabrics gave rise to the art of Chinese embroidery, and the embroidered works have become highly complex and exquisite. The colors. People normally wore light color clothing in daily life. Red, bright yellow and purple always exclusively belonged to the emperor and imperial family. The mass people mostly wore red at wedding. Besides that, white clothing was normally worn at a funeral. For example, for women, only an empress or official wife could wear true red, while the color was prohibited from concubines. The pattern. The ancient feudal society. People's rank and social status could easily be figured out from their daily dressing, especially for the ordinary people and the upper class. Among the upper dominating classes, only the emperor was assigned the color yellow, and the dragon emblem on traditional Chinese imperial dress as an exclusive affirmation of their power. As for the ministers, generals, councillors, and their wives, their uniform were restrictively regulated for how many lions or cranes can be embroidered on. Next, the gender. Women's clothing was more diverse than clothing for men. Compared to men's clothing, women's clothing had more ornaments, items, and styles. The material. At the very beginning, the ancient Chinese only covered their bodies with leaves. As agricultural development increased, more clothing material appeared in later years. Linen, cotton, and silk were prominent materials. During the Ming Dynasty, according to the government's policy of physiocracy and restriction of business, businessmen were forbidden to wear silk clothing, even if they were rich. The history: almost every dynasty had its unique clothes, some of which were exquisite beyond compare. In conclusion, overall, I would like to sum up. These show that China is a home to several small groups, united by common cultural practices. The cultural practices of minority groups play a significant role in shaping Chinese culture. By encouraging nationalization in promoting integration among diverse groups. Despite the diversity inherent in this society, Chinese people remain united by their common belief and cultural system. Chinese people instill to adopt and promote new values and their high status levels. However, this society still strongly supported and attached to the ancient traditional in contemporary China. Regardless of the changes of time, the traditional clothing culture should be preserved because everyone from different races has his or her own roots, so don't forget where you came from. Generally, we should be proud and respect of our own cultures and other races as well. Loyalty to our own culture is a must to exist in everyone's heart and need to be passed on from generation to generation. Thank you.